Hey everybody, CJ Maurer here, and welcome back to another episode of The Fling. We are rolling along in late winter, early spring. The weather's getting nicer. We're continuing to have some really great conversations with some fun and interesting people. I am super excited today to be joined by Christina Garnett. Christina Garnett actually is a senior marketing manager of something or other, but what's important to know is that she's on the community team for HubSpot. And anybody who knows me knows that HubSpot plays a significant role in my career. Not only is it my CRM and marketing platform of choice, but my business is actually also a HubSpot solutions partner. So we help a lot of our clients get set up on HubSpot and leverage it properly. So, I'm deeply embedded into the HubSpot community, which is why it's super exciting to be talking to somebody whose role is designed to really maximize and proliferate the benefits of community for HubSpot and everybody in its ecosystem. So really excited to talk to Christina about this and a variety of things. First and foremost, Christina, thank you so much and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is a great way to start the day. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It is a great way to start the day. You are in Southwest Virginia, you
hmm
mentioned?
Yes.
And you are, so I'm sure the weather, I'm in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
So, I'm in definitely a colder climate than you.
hmm
But what I can say is that right now the weather is really starting to turn.
hmm
Up here, we have pretty good balance of seasons. But as most people know, the winters are very cold and snowy and gray. And so one of the first signs that spring is coming is the sun's out a lot more often. So we're really sunny day today.
hmm
Its high is only going to be like 39 or 40, but now we're
hmm
moving into 50s and 60s pretty consistently over the next week. So I'm really excited about that. I'd imagine it's a little warmer down your end, right?
A little bit, yeah. We have, I think the only differences for us is that there's a lot more rain. Like spring means rain in
Mm.
Virginia.
We'll definitely get our fair share of rain for sure, especially in April. Actually, I have a sister in Richmond, Virginia,
Nice.
on the other side of the state, and
hmm
another sister in Washington D.C.
hmm
So close, but I'm not sure she's ever left the district since she moved down there 15 years ago. She's somebody who literally she probably has never been to Virginia or Maryland. She just stays right in the city. Um,
I
but
can, I can, I can appreciate that.
yeah, right. It's a great city. So,
It is.
so real quickly before we jump into some stuff, we were catching up a little bit. We're both college basketball fans. We
Yep.
both have our favorite teams in the tournament. Mine,
hmm
St. Bonaventure, and yours with being Virginia Tech. So,
hmm
spring is coming. The first full day of college basketball starts today. So it's a Friday, at the
hmm
time of this recording. So a lot of reasons to be excited, right?
Yeah, a lot of good vibes. Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts today too. I'm a big Marvel fan. Lots of good vibes.
Nice, nice. I am not a Marvel fan, but
hmm
I feel like being on Twitter, I feel like I'm missing out because people talk about, I finally learned what MCU means.
Okay.
So now I can understand that, people are referencing that.
hmm
But yeah, I just never really got into it. But I do feel like at this point, I feel like I'm kind of missing out. So.
It's definitely creating this universe of storytelling, and also apart from gaming, which I think gaming has some of the best storytelling in like marketing industry as a whole, what they're doing by pivoting from theatrical releases into Disney Plus drips essentially with these shows.
Mhm.
What you have is you have this weekly airing show, but because it's so story driven, it feels like a 6 7 hour movie that you're getting to watch. So you're getting to have all these nuances and story arcs and like just the character development you're able to have when you're telling someone's story over like 9 episodes for like WandaVision versus a 2 hour movie. It's very different, but you create an even stronger emotional connection.
That is that is a fantastic description, especially for somebody who does not have, a lot of familiarity with it. I love your point on story too. Story is so interesting. Like, we both work in marketing, obviously, and before I got really into like content and inbound and things like that, I had previously worked really more on the branding and advertising side. I actually like wrote copy for radio and TV campaigns and things like that, and brand positioning strategies, and so I really became kind of like a nerd about story, about psychology, behavioral science, and things like that. All basically amateur level, right? Like not trying to compete with like credentialed professionals in those areas,
Yeah.
but just more of a generalist about like why do people do the things that they do, right? And when you learn about story, what's really interesting. What I've always found fascinating about story is it is so compelling. It doesn't matter. It may manifest itself in different ways on different platforms, but story is it has such a deep connection to the human experience. And there's really only a couple of types of story frameworks, right? That are just told in a variety of different ways with different characters. It is such a timeless thing. It resonates with everybody, and it's just really, really powerful. So I've always appreciated that about story.
No, it's really powerful. And I think as we talk about community later too, there's also this idea of ritual. And so whether Disney's doing it on purpose or not, they've revitalized TGIF. They've revitalized every Friday. The Marvel fans are going to be prepped to watch this specific show episode that's going to come out because they don't want to be spoiled. They want to be able to talk to others. They want to be able to, and then like YouTube has this influx of this is what the ending means, and here's the Easter eggs you need to know about. And so
Yeah.
what they're doing is this weekly drip, which we're somehow like we've evolved to the point over 2020 that we stopped. There was an article. It was like halfway through WandaVision, and I'm a massive Elizabeth Olsen fan, and I love Scarlet Witch, and I love that whole show. So I'm ready to like fight slander, but they were talking about how it was short because a lot of the beginning episodes were like 30 minutes long, and that it wasn't right for the consumer because they had to wait a week. And we're just like, this is TV. Like this was what TV was before streaming. It wasn't that long ago. You're acting like they're going against the customer experience when what they're doing is they had a show about sitcoms air the way sitcoms would air, where you had to wait a week, where it was only 30 minutes, where you didn't have the ability to binge unless you were watching reruns too. And so it just, for whatever reason, it was just so striking. And also like comic books, you don't get all the comic books at once unless they're like older and that story's already been told. Otherwise you have to wait for the next one to come out. You have to wait for that next edition. So it's like they're using storytelling from a sitcom and comic book perspective, but because it's not quote unquote bingeable yet, it goes against the customer experience. No, what it's doing is it's recreating that ritual where you have to wait, where it gives us we have to be patient, but also because of that, there's a week-long amount of content that then is created about like, what do you think is going to happen in the next episode? What are your fan theories? What do you think that Easter egg meant? What do you think that commercial meant? What do you think they're going to do next? How do you think this will show up? Who's going to be the cameo? Is Doctor Strange going to show up? None of that would have happened either if they had binged it. They would have basically seen 1 week of everyone talking about WandaVision, and then it would have been up instead of 9 weeks talking about it, having a ritual with everyone. And then they keep it going because they had the week off where they did the documentary, and then we go straight into Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then we go straight into Loki. So they're creating this every Friday. What are you doing on Friday? I'm watching Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought it up unsolicited. I mean, you're demonstrating what they're doing. I think that's such a great point. I love it. Right? I love how it flies in the face of what it has now become conventional wisdom, which is, everything all at once, on demand or bust. And obviously we understand why that's preferable, but when you have a good story and when you have a good product, it's actually kind of funny because I'm a big sports fan, and I think about sometimes why the NFL has become as popular as it is. And, a handful of decades ago, it was just one of like the big four where you had baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. And Baseball was kind of always our national pastime, and maybe that was the most popular. But over time, NFL now is definitely the most popular sport in the country. And I think about why that is, and one of the reasons why I think is actually exclusivity and ritual, right? So when you're in season, baseball, basketball, and hockey, there's games on almost every night, right? So almost any time you can watch a game, which is cool, but that means any night is less special. Football, you have to wait a week. It's Sunday, right?
Yep.
So
It's
it's
extremely ritualistic.
extremely then
You
the
have your
tailgating
costume and your
everything.
tailgate. Like you have a lucky hat. You may not shave. If
Right,
your team
college
is
football,
doing,
same thing, right? On Saturdays.
Yep. Yep.
Right? So
People will
it's
tailgate, like game starts at 2, but they're in the parking lot at 8.
yep.
Like it's extremely ritualistic, but those rituals create a participation touch point.
Yes.
So you as a fan, you get to be a part of this ecosystem because here are the behaviors and here's the rituals you're going to do. And we see this with college football games, like there's certain games where they have to wear a certain color. We're all going to wear, like at Virginia Tech, it's like maroon everything. You'll just wear maroon or you'll do orange. Some teams, like the whiteout games at Penn State, like you have these very clear participation rituals where it's not enough to be here. You're going to be here and you're going to have a chant. There's going to be a song you sing. There's going to be like specific cheers on like a third down versus a first down. It's all about that ritual because that creates a moment for the audience to become the part of the community where they're no longer standing on the sidelines. They're now stepping in and they're participating. They're a part of it. They like Texas A&M, like 12th man. They talk about like, you're loud and you're raucous and you're gonna make sure that like no one can hear audibles because you're so loud. You get to play a role in how that game is played, especially if it's in the favor of your team because of how loud you yelled or how you participated. It's definitely important.
This is who we are.
Yep.
Right. And that just, you think about like, well, how does that work? How do you just get 70,000 people to wear a white shirt or whatever it is, right? But like at the end of the day, one, it's just for fun. But I think what really drives it is like we love people. We just love to belong. Yeah. We love to belong. And it's deeply rooted in, and you could probably expand upon this. You know more about this than I do, but I've learned that I don't know, however many years ago, eons ago, right? Early humans had to belong because survival depended on, being part of the pack or the tribe, right? We all pooled together, shared resources, collect food, fended ourselves from, bears and other animals, right? And so like the idea of being ostracized meant a threat to your survival. So it is like hardwired into our DNA to want to belong. And obviously now that manifests itself in different ways, right? We don't really fear for our actual survival, but I've heard somebody said that like when you get nervous speaking in front of an audience, it's because humans in our DNA, where whenever they had to speak in front of a large audience, it was to advocate for themselves to not be ostracized from the group. Maybe they did something bad or something, and there's almost like they were put on trial. So it's like this like very innate connection to actually like fending for your survival, and that's why people get scared speaking in front of people, which is like really, really crazy. But at the end of the day, right, these are all of the underpinnings for why I think businesses would be smart to invest or just really foster community, because everybody wins. It's baked into our DNA.
Completely agree. That sense of belongingness is so crucial. And like you said, it may not be like a mortality survival thing, but it's definitely an emotional survival tactic. I mean, if we look at everything that we encountered last year with 2020, where we were cut off from like the normal communication norms we had, we weren't able to have the physicality that we used to because You basically have to lock yourself in your home and have your bubble and like, here are the places I can go, and here's the people I can see, and here's the things I can and can't do. And so we wound up trying to find that same physicality and connection online, because you don't have to wear a mask through Zoom. Like, we're actually able to talk to each other, connect there. That it's the closest thing to intimacy a lot of us have, apart from the people who are in our normal day life that live in our house or our apartment. So you have this need to be able to connect more than ever. And what you're going to see is you need to foster community, but you also need to understand that that community doesn't just live online, because there's going to be people who, if they're focused on, I just need this to live here on this one place online, it's going to be hard when we're able to open up again and we're able to go to conferences and we're able to do things. So you're creating this community ecosystem. That's what you're really doing. Here's where they connect online. Here's their home online. And then how can we use that to facilitate in-person things? So do you have an events calendar in your owned community where they're able to see, like, here are the things that are coming up. Here's meetings that you can go to. Here's meetups. Just like, you don't have to go to a workshop. You just want to have drinks with someone who has something in common with you. And like, we're all going to meet here. Because I think that's the thing too, is what you're going to see is you're going to see this influx of people meeting in person, but it's going to have less structure, because we need less structure, because it's not about knowledge sharing at that point. We can do the knowledge sharing online. Like, I can like spread my stream of consciousness all over Twitter all day long. But when it comes to like meeting in person, I just want to hug someone and get them a drink and just be like, how are you doing?
Just
How
be
are you
together.
doing?
Just be together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you are a community leader on one of the most prominent B2B brands that I know of, and we haven't even talked about that yet.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that. Before we do, why don't you explain how you got to from wherever you started? Like, how did you get to? I am one of the community leaders for HubSpot, which is such a large and prominently growing business.
Yeah.
So tell people how you got there. I want people to be inspired by your story.
Yeah. So I've been a massive fangirl of HubSpot for years. I openly confess that I wouldn't be a marketer today if it wasn't for HubSpot Academy. I was an English major in college. I taught math for 5 years. I have a very nonlinear career path. When I met my husband, the first like 2 weeks we were dating, he said that I should go into marketing because I would fix things. I would deconstruct. I'm a deconstructionist at heart. I break things, optimize, put back together, and kind of like put back into the universe. And so I would fix commercials. I would fix anything I saw, like literally anything. I'd be like, if this color choice would be better, that wording's not right, I would do this. I would change that music. I just immediately started fixing things and didn't really think anything of it at the time, because I was a teacher and I was like, no, this is good. I'm fine. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I often joke that I'm a teacher who just left the classroom, because so much of what I like to do is learning more about others and then helping to educate. And for me, instead of educating students, I truly believe in giving back to the industry. And I think one of the best ways, if you truly love an industry, one of the best ways to invest in it is to prepare the future use. Make sure that the budding students, the people who are just starting out and have questions, who don't know anything, it's very easy to come from a place of I know it all and like, let me share. But no one knows it all. We're literally all coming, like, we're all learning as we go. Things are changing all the time. Like, marketing school couldn't have prepared you for last year. Like, they could teach you PR crisis, they could teach you how to read a room, but they're not going to prep you for what like a year of a pandemic is like, and all the good and bad that comes with it, and all the changes in user need that are going to come with that too. A lot of it's going to be living in those trenches, learning how to adapt, reading the room, and understanding, like, and just listening. I think that's such a lost art, is social listening, but also just listening in conversations. So many times we wait to respond, so we're not really
I
listening.
was just gonna say, I've caught myself in that so often. It's something I've gotten a little bit better, but I still need to get better. Sometimes I just wait for my turn to respond instead of really, really listening. And it's usually not because I'm not interested in what that other person is saying, or because I think what I have to say is necessarily more important, but it's a fear of maybe not being able to like sometimes I get scared that I'm not gonna have a worthwhile response, or I'm not gonna be able to like keep up in the conversation. But what I found is that when I can focus on like, okay, just don't worry about your response and just listen, that actually you actually become a better conversationalist in one-on-one conversations, and then broader listening probably is some of the things that you're alluding to.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that once we get to that place where we're focused on, I just want to learn more about you. I don't want to judge, and I don't want to immediately quote tweet basically on Twitter, as so many people are ready to share their opinion from like a gut reaction instead of like what is this person actually trying to say.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the arguments on Twitter is because people are trying to correct what they think you were saying, not what you were actually saying. And I think that's led to a lot of issues. But getting back to HubSpot, um, I've I feel like I've orbited HubSpot for most of my career. I found HubSpot Academy. HubSpot Academy was the first initial marketing knowledge I had. I took the inbound certification and absolutely fell in love. It made so much sense to me. It felt like common sense, where it's just like, that's how my brain works. And I think that what we're doing with the community now is an extension of that. The community's been there. We have hugs, the HubSpot user groups, and we have fans online. What I feel blessed because I feel like I get to be a fan of the fans, where I get to be in a position where I get to learn from the fans. What do they love? What do they wish was different? If they could make anything, if they could like wave a magic wand and add a new feature, what would that feature be? Um, Finding out what they love about the product, how we can empower them to be a better voice for themselves. Does that mean they get to make YouTube videos, or does it mean that they want to write a blog? But having someone that's there to be like, I see you. And that's the thing too, is HubSpot is customer first, and you can see it in everything they do, but you can also see it in the people that are attracted to them as well. Like the HubSpot leaders that I see, the partners, the hug leaders, they're all some of the most giving people I've ever met. They can't wait to share and enable and empower others. And it's just really, I feel very blessed that I get to be a part of that.
Me too. And I'm not even as close to it as you are. I mean, I feel very close to it though. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a really great community. Um, I want to ask you quickly about, because we met on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, you are I with the last couple months I really discovered, you know, hashtag marketing Twitter. And
Yeah.
marketing Twitter is another really great community.
Mhm.
And when you said when you use the analogy about like not immediately just like quote tweeting everything and your opinions and listening, you know, I immediately connected that to Twitter, which is where I met you, and you know, I've followed a bunch of people, and some people have followed me, and that's another really great community where people come in with the right attitudes.
Mhm.
They're there to learn and help and collaborate.
Yeah.
You know, what's been your experience with marketing Twitter and watching it grow, and why do you think that's a great community?
No, I love marketing Twitter. I love the people there. I think that we've all kind of collectively, because there were marketing groups on Twitter before last year. They've been there for years. There's been pockets of people who talk to each other. I've been friends with a lot of marketers the whole time that I've been on Twitter. But what I think really happened was you saw a community, you saw a whole industry break, basically. You saw people burning out, people getting laid off, people leaving their jobs just because like burning out was worse than not having a safety net and having to save themselves. You saw people fleeing, people deciding whether or not they wanted to pivot completely and say like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. There's no joy here. So
Right.
you're seeing these massive hard conversations happening, while at the same time you're seeing people break and saying, you know what, I can't hold. And I wrote a couple pieces last year too about like how social media managers are going to survive, because you're seeing the worst of the internet at the same time. It's a 24-hour job no matter what they say, because you're having to respond to people, you're having to deal with the next crisis. And also last year, think about it, we were seeing breaking news items. Like you could have 6 or 7 a day that on a normal year you'd probably see over the course of like 3 months, but we're having to deal with it in one day, having to figure out like, do we go dark, do we respond, do we act like nothing's happening? how do we handle that? I think one blessing of that is the content calendar being like completely perfect and scheduled and ready to go has been like burned and trashed. And
Yeah. When
that's
you
a
think
very
about
big
a lot of the
positive.
people, when you think about a lot of the people in social media, like a lot of these people who, they have their content calendars and, they're very organized, deliberate, intentional people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of one of the things that makes them good about their job,
Yep.
good at their job. But at the same time, right, there needs to be that flexibility
Yep.
and reactiveness. So, that the past year did nothing if not reinforce that.
Yeah. And I think it also proved, it also showcased just like a whole different level of agility. You're having to jump hurdles multiple times a day, things that you never would have perceived. Like last year was the year of like the Onion not seeming like it was a fictional account.
Yeah.
It was just like I saw this on the Onion a couple years, like everything was The Simpsons and the Onion predicted this already.
So it said you joined. I have your Twitter pulled up here. It says you joined in April 2016.
Hmm.
So you have 18,000 followers. Wow, 18,000 followers in just 5 years. That's like what like I mean. There's probably a lot of people who are like, man, I wish I could, have 18,000 followers. Um, I have a feeling like I know what you're going to say, but I'm
Hmm.
curious. Like, how did you build up a following like
Yeah.
that? You're not. I'm assuming unless there's something I'm unaware of, you're not like a famous person,
Nope, not
right?
famous at all.
So how did you get 18,000 followers in 5 years? Where some people have been like I've been on since. I'm not the most active, but I've been on since 2009, and I don't even have 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
So like, how did you do it?
Yeah. So when I started, it was more about sharing things from Roanoke and what I was doing when I was there. I was at the Roanoke SBDC. I was a marketing director for them, and so I was sharing things about small business and using it as more of like a local amplifier, and was able to connect. And basically, what I was using it originally for was like who can I learn from, who can I connect with, and kind of like learning outside of my specific local realm. So my voice was local, but my intention was to reach out and see the people who were working at agencies that I've always wanted to learn more about, to connect with the people whose like marketing books I was reading, and
Hmm.
who people I would want to see at a conference. And when Twitter started, I had no idea how to use it. Like the user culture didn't make sense to me. And so my whole thing was like, do I just go on here and like talk to celebrities and tell Simon Pegg how much I love him? Like, is that what Twitter is? Like, is that how we
Funny.
use this tool? And so I wound up working at an art museum, and their social media presence, they had accounts, but they weren't really using them regularly. And a colleague of mine wanted to do Instagram. I was like, that's fine, I'll do Twitter and Facebook. And so what I did was I wound up spending a lot of time in the trenches and started looking at and deconstructing, auditing, like whether I realized it or not, figuring out like these are the kind of conversations that people like. This is the kind of emotions that people connect with versus content that seems really dry. These are the things that are going to work. And so that built it up to a certain point. But what grew my following more than anything else was when I made it about others and not myself. When I
Mm.
started amplifying others and started celebrating people who had great ideas, it didn't matter that it wasn't my idea and it wasn't my words. When I was taking that time to advocate for other people and to make sure their voices were being heard, then I became known as a connector and someone who was going to amplify those smaller accounts. And that's what grew my account faster than anything else. When I wasn't chasing follows, and what I was doing
Yeah.
instead was saying, how can I use my account to make this industry better? So I want to share the people who are doing great things. I want to hype up the people who are doing great work, but maybe no one's ever seen them. And the thing with Twitter is, and with any social media like channel really, is that follower count does not dictate value. it
Right.
just it just dictates how many people know you exist. It
Yeah.
literally it dictates awareness. It does not dictate value.
Hmm.
So there's tons of accounts that I've seen that have like 530 follows, and they'll write some really great stuff, but no one's seen them and amplified them. So their little circle of awareness are the only people who realize how great they are. So if I get to use my channel to make sure those people get seen, that those people get a blog written, that those people get to speak at a conference, that helps them. but it also helps our industry because that's a point of view that wasn't being heard yet. That's a perspective that we can all utilize that they can share. And so for me, and I think I've seen a lot of people on Twitter do this where a lot of the biggest brand, like not brands, but a lot of the biggest accounts that move really quickly, like they gain a following overnight, it's not magic. It's because someone with a bigger following than them, either a friend, family member, someone they're
Mm-hmm.
connected to, is helping amplify them to give them quick lift. So my thing is like, why can't I do that to everybody? Why can't I do that same momentum and push
Mm-hmm.
everybody up? And so that turns into like when I did that marketing Twitter tweet, my thing was I woke up one day and my thread, like my entire feed was my friends. It was all the marketing people I talked to. I wasn't seeing politics, I wasn't seeing hate, I wasn't seeing anger, I wasn't seeing like the toxic vitriol that we're used to
Mm-hmm.
seeing when we open up a
Yeah.
social media app and we're like, oh my God, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
It was the opposite of that. It was a kind place where I get to talk to my friends all day and we can joke and laugh and talk about marketing. And so my thing was, I want to share that. And I want to share this to the people who need it most, which are those people who are doing great work, but maybe no one's heard about them because they don't have 1,000 followers or they don't think they're worthy. If you look in that thread, there are so many people who say, I've been lurking. I knew this was a thing, but I didn't think I was worthy, or I didn't think I was invited, or I didn't think I had anything that was worth saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, that's why I put that 1,000 is like, who would need an invitation? Who are the people who feel other? And it's because we put so much value on followers instead of how can we lift those up? So if I can lift everybody up so that follower count is no longer an issue, then we can just have these conversations and Twitter doesn't become like, your value isn't tied to that magical number. What it's tied into is like what you're actually saying and providing. And as the community's grown, it's done a lot of things. Like I know that there's people who've made friends, who've gotten jobs because of it, who've
Yeah.
connected with things. So it's done a lot of goodwill. I think though that I would also tell for anyone who wants a lot of followers, once you pass like a certain threshold, you become a target. It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you do. Um, there are people who like dunking culture is probably the best way to describe it. And I try
Imagine thinking fill in the blank or whatever, just like
yeah,
the snark.
snark. But what they wind up doing is I saw a couple of people talking about it today. I'm not going to name names because I don't like to do that. Um, but they'll talk about how formulaic marketing Twitter is. And there are some accounts they very much are. They figured out what works and they're growth hackers. And so they say like, if I do this, and I do this, then I'll get tons of engagement and I'll get tons of likes and I'll get tons of followers. And that's true. That's totally true. But the people who are dunking on it are using that as an engagement hack too.
Yeah.
You're just choosing to engage by dunking and they're choosing to engage by building.
Yeah.
So my thing is I try to be optimistic, but I'm intrinsically cynical. So when I see that, my thing is if you're on Twitter and you're posting at all, it's an engagement hack because you're hoping that whatever you have to say, someone's going to see and is going to like and is going to respond to. If you
Sure.
if you didn't want people to respond and you didn't want attention, you'd never post. You
You
would
would
have
never
like
post.
yeah, you'd be like an Apple brand account. Like we don't have to post, you'll follow us anyway. Like that kind of deal. Like they don't need to share anything. It's very much like that. So my thing would be posting in general, whether you're an individual or a brand, it's an awareness and engagement tactic. Like
Sure.
if you knew that you were going to post and no one was going to do anything, you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't post at all. So just the activity or the behavior of posting and publishing anything means that you're expecting attention, bare minimum,
Yeah,
whether you're being
I agree
positive or negative.
completely. I agree completely. That's really good. And I'm glad to hear, like, because I am a, like, deep down, like, intrinsically, I'm kind of like a hopeless romantic,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I want to be very optimistic about the world and the people in it and everyone's intentions.
Yeah.
So it satisfies me to hear you say that, like, I grew a following when I really wasn't caring
Yeah.
about getting followers, and I just wanted to show up and help and connect and engage, and then people started following me as a result. And like, that's how I want the world to work. It doesn't always work that way, but it's very encouraging, right? So it's really the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy where, they say pursue money and it evades you, but like, that's another thing. You want to talk about like value. Just because somebody has a lot of money does not exactly mean like that is how much value that
Yeah.
they are worth, right? How
Yeah.
valuable they are as a human. But it is also true that if you can really focus on like adding value to the world, however you can, like then money does often find its way to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've found that giving more than you take is the best life hack.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole inbound methodology. I was actually
Mhm.
on somebody else's podcast, a digital marketing podcast that some guy in the UK runs. I recorded it yesterday. It was really fun,
Mhm.
and we were talking about like viewing relationships as bank accounts. Like you always
Mhm.
have to make a couple deposits before you
Yeah.
try and take a withdrawal, if you even
Yeah.
do, right?
Yep.
And that is actually written into the formal marketing strategy
Mhm.
of the last company I worked at, where I was the
Mhm.
director of marketing. And everybody is just on board. And what was cool about that is that they never really had like advanced marketing leadership when I got there.
Mhm.
But as a company, through customer service and
Mhm.
setup, and they're a company that sells and supports software,
Mhm.
payroll and HR software, right? Like a lot of the things that I was advocating for was already intuitive to them. Like,
Mhm.
right, there was already how they structured a lot of what they would do, is specifically from a customer service standpoint, and it was a
Mhm.
big reason why they had such a high customer retention rate.
Yep.
But it was just never like documented or called to attention or say, okay,
Right.
so all of these things, like these patterns,
Mhm.
right? The it's all a result of this core belief. So
Yep.
now we're going to put this up on a pedestal and we're going to like use this as a benchmark against which we will evaluate new ideas.
Mhm.
Does this align with this central mission, right?
Yep.
And then to use that to tell the story, right? And
Mhm.
to really make it part of the brand. And I
Mhm.
think that brand, people say brand is, people define brand in a variety of ways. It's a promise or whatever. I think that's true. I like to refer to brand as behavior because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it's not about what you believe or you say you believe or you talk about, but it's really how you act. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, how people know me is not influenced by me. If I want to be known as an honest person, I
Yep.
don't go around telling people how honest I am. I
Yep.
just behave like an honest person would until ultimately they became to realize,
Yep.
they came to realize that about me, and I didn't have to tell them. And so, I mean, if HubSpot wants to
Mhm.
be more than just a software platform, but
Mhm.
a powerful community and ecosystem,
Mhm.
it could do what like bringing you and your team in the fold, which is
Mhm.
fostering community, which
Mhm.
is one of the things I admire about HubSpot. I mean, they're not
Mhm.
alone, but they behave
Mhm.
consistently with their values. They act
Mhm.
in their beliefs, and that's
Yep.
really great. So before I mean, we could probably talk for hours and hours, but we both have work to do. So before we break, why don't you talk? I know HubSpot is a publicly traded company, and you can't go into too much detail
Mhm.
about what you're doing on the community
Mhm.
side there.
Mhm.
But why don't you I think a lot of people who might be watching and listening this, and I don't even know because I don't even check the metrics, but it's not a ton, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people who are watching and listening, like they're probably interested in
Mhm.
HubSpot. So
Yeah.
why don't you kind of explain what you're
Mhm.
doing there to the extent that you're able to share?
Absolutely. So I'm focused on offline community and advocacy. So basically, I probably the easiest way to describe my job is a fan of the fans. I'm doing a lot of social listening. I'm figuring out what people love about HubSpot, what feedback they have, good and bad, how are they using it to grow better. So much about of HubSpot's charge is helping businesses grow better. And so how can we utilize that for fans as well? How can we help the fans grow better? How can we provide better resources for them? How can we give them the tools they need to be even more successful? And so the community team was there before I started. We have an amazing team led by Scott Wilder, who is incredibly talented and brilliant. And so I get to go in there and be a part of his team, share this message. Like you said, it aligns with everything that HubSpot does. Customer first. We want to make sure that we're giving more than we take. We want to make sure that we are creating opportunities for them to be successful. And so my charge is to look and see how we can do that and really celebrate the great vocal users of HubSpot, where they are, if they're on Twitter or Reddit or LinkedIn or Slack or Discord or YouTube or TikTok. Basically, a lot of what I'm doing is identifying those people and basically saying, like, how can I amplify you? How can I help you? So kind of like what I've been doing with marketing Twitter is doing that from like a HubSpot focus thing. So like I said, I get to be a fan of the fans, which, considering I was a fan before I joined HubSpot,
Yeah.
I feel very blessed that I get to have that role, because there's some incredible people that are in the HubSpot community, and I get to be a part of making them even more powerful, which is really great.
I mean, just our Twitter DM conversation where you're like, "Hey, I would love to learn more about the resources you find most helpful,"
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just like genuinely asking. And
Mhm.
I feel like, especially now that I'm a business owner and I've been running an agency for a year and a half, like most of the people who DM me on Twitter, but especially LinkedIn, I don't get a ton of
Mhm.
Twitter DMs because I'm not super active, but um, they're trying to sell me stuff. So like so refreshing just to have somebody be like, "Hey, I'm curious. I'm trying to do this, and I'm curious your opinion," and realizing that like you're trying to help improve something that's really important to me. So it's just really really refreshing, and it's like I find time to engage with you or people
Mhm.
right in that context, and I just love. I was just really drawn to like what your mission is, and like I said,
Mhm.
it was just really refreshing. So I'm really excited to see. I mean, how long you haven't been at HubSpot very long, right?
I started in February, so I'm still
Wow. So
very new.
really quick. All
I'm
right.
very new.
So I knew it was less than a year. I didn't realize it was that new.
It's very new. I hit the ground running.
That's cool. That's so exciting. And I mean, talk about a company that was already pretty used to remote work, right? Like I know
Yeah.
obviously they have a lot of people in Boston and a lot of people in Dublin, but when I first started in HubSpot, and I first started using HubSpot, I was
Mhm.
a user first, like a lot of
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
My implementation specialist, I think, was in like Indiana in
Mhm.
2016, right?
Yeah.
So, they, I still think that obviously they had most of their people reporting to the offices because when
Mhm.
I would be on these calls, usually people would be in the
Mhm.
office, but,
Yep.
um, they still have, it's a great place where you can,
Mhm.
remote work is. Have you ever been
No,
to any of the offices yet?
I haven't, not yet.
No. Have you been to Inbound?
Yes, I go to Inbound like every year. I spoke in 2 years ago.
Nice, cool, 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 cool. Yeah, I didn't go this year because no one did, but I also didn't really like. I wasn't there because my wife was having a baby. So,
Oh, well,
um,
congrats.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Our third and final.
Mhm.
But actually, I did like we actually like put on like 15 minutes of. We were in the hospital after she was born, and like my wife uses at her company. She works in sales, and she
Yeah.
uses HubSpot. So
Yay. It's a HubSpot
we
family. I love
no, it
it.
really is. It really is. My Cam and my CC sent me a little HubSpot onesie when my daughter was born. And
Oh,
it was really great. It's on LinkedIn. I'll have to share the picture.
that's
Um,
awesome. That's precious.
yeah, it's just really great. We watched the like only like 10 or 15 minutes of like the Brian and Darmesh keynote when we were just
Oh,
kind of.
I loved it. Them at
Yeah.
Fenway.
So yeah, actually, I still haven't seen the whole thing, which is really weird for me
It's
because
so good.
I went to
Painful.
it's like one of my favorite. It's always one of my favorite things, and
Same. Yeah,
I went
you can miss a lot of Inbound things. You never miss Darmesh and Brian's
right.
talk
No.
at Inbound. Like never, ever,
I
ever.
I was there. I went there the 4 years prior,
Okay,
16,
awesome.
17, 18, 19.
Yep.
It's great. It's such a great conference. I love being there. Um, I hope. I don't know. Are they doing it this year or not? Like I don't know.
It's digital. You can buy tickets.
Oh, it's digital in 2021 again. Okay.
Hmm. Yep.
I will definitely attend this year, but
Mhm.
I want to go. I want to be there again.
Same. Yeah, I love like the annual pilgrimage to Boston.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
And Boston's a great city. Always
it
get like an
is.
Airbnb and
Yep.
growing up in Connecticut, I was closer to New York City and grew up rooting for New York teams and
Hmm.
always gravitated. I was like an hour from New York and
Hmm.
so as for like whether it be family things or school field trips, we would always like gravitate to New York City. I I saw so many Broadway plays in middle school
Mhm.
that I did not care about, but would have loved to. Like now, I would appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, but also like kind of also 2 hours from Boston, so I'd been there a couple times, and just really one of those amazing cities.
It really, really is. And there's a whole vibe there. Like I've had a lot of people that I've talked into going into inbound, and my initial thing is the only thing I make them promise me, and you'll understand this. The people who don't haven't been to inbound want to understand. I tell them I have to be with you when you go down the escalator for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
When you see the floor for the first time and it's like Disney World for like marketing adults, and you're like,
yeah. It is.
it is like I tell them like I just want to be with you to see your face. Like I'm not even looking at the floor, I'm looking at your face while you're going down the escalator, because I get to, it's addictive. Like I get to experience inbound for the first time all over again with every new person that I get to do. And the only other time I've ever done that is when I took my son, we took the kids a couple years ago to Harry Potter at Universal Orlando. And I told my husband when they were about to go into Diagon Alley, I was like, let me go first and let me be able to see my son's face when it opens up, because I was like, because I'm paying for this trip and that's my return on investment. Like
Yeah, yeah.
all of my ROI right there. I need to see it. Worth every penny.
That's great. I love how you just described it as Disney for marketing adults. That
It is.
it
It's
really is. It
like,
really is.
oh,
It's so, and it's almost silly to say that, but I guess not really. Like, because this, if especially you care about your profession, you
yeah.
enjoy it, right? And this is you
But it's
where,
people, but it's people who love the same thing you do. So like at Disney
yeah,
World, it's all Disney fans and it's all these things they love. And then you go to inbound, it's all these marketers and salespeople, and it's all these people get to be where they love, and it's their tribe. So depending on where you work, you could be the only marketing person in your team. And so you try to talk about things you're passionate about. You're like, what is she even saying? You get to go to inbound, and it's like we all have short code for each other. It's like we all get
yeah.
it. And so the energy is just excellent. Like I could feed off of the energy in inbound. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool striking up a conversation with a stranger, already
Mhm.
entering that conversation knowing that you have a lot in common,
Yep.
right? And there's like you have a propensity to get along with that person,
Yes.
you know? Um, the amount of people there, the energy is fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, the HubSpotness of it all is great too,
Yeah.
right? With just the vendors, like
Mhm.
I always like once or twice while I'm there, I like do a lap around and just like talk to people, and even if it's
Mhm.
not something that I'm super interested in or I'm like
Mhm.
not sure I'm gonna buy, I'm just like tell me about this. Like I want to know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So you really just feel like you're at the epicenter of this industry. And again, we all love to belong.
Yeah,
We
it's
all love
true.
to belong.
Yeah, and you also have the opportunity for those micro communities. So there's all these different like meetups that you can go to. You have different pods that you can go to. So there was I remember one time there was this like really sleek white like couch area, and then there was like swings on the other side, and it was just like you not only get to belong within this larger group, but you also have these like micro aesthetic communities where you're able to go and kind of pick your own adventure. There's so many things to choose from. You can really just do all of the breakout and keynotes, or you could
Mhm.
do like some of the spotlights and be able to learn more. And also the speakers are fantastic. Like
Yeah.
the speakers are walking on the floor with you. I've met so
Yeah.
many of them. They'll like I met Rand Fishkin a couple of years ago, and
Mhm.
I brought my copy of Lost and Founder. Just went right up to him after the talk. He was super nice, signed it
Super
for
nice.
me.
Yeah. I ran into him once too, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Totally did.
super nice,
Um,
and it just feels like you get to be in a position where you're learning from some of the best thought leaders in the space that are absolutely brilliant, that are changing how us marketers are doing things, or creating the tools that us marketers are going to use in like 5, 10
yeah.
years. And being able to all meet them in one place is just incredibly impactful. So yeah, it's one of my favorite things.
The one thing that I'm a little bit lamenting is why I'm excited to go there again is that so 2020 would have been the first year that I would have attended as a
As
solutions
a
partner.
partner.
So for
Yeah.
partner day and things like that, and
Yeah.
so again, to make one more point about really the value of community. I remember noticing how a lot of business owners in a variety of industries maybe have trade groups where they congregate among other business owners in their industry, right? Like, in the payroll industries, there's IPPA, Independent Payroll Providers Association. So minus the ADPs and the paychecks, the publicly traded, all the small, local, regional around the country. And they have a great community, and they do like 2 conferences a year. And it's really, and I spoke from a marketing perspective, like when I was a director of marketing at my previous employer, I spoke there a couple years in a row in Vegas. That was really fun. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's cool that that exists, but like, I don't need to talk to other agency owners. Like I want to network where the clients are. I want to bring in business. I want to bring in sales. And now, shoot, like I'm listening to agency podcasts and joining groups and marketing chats on Twitter or whatever, right? And like I'm just so enthralled. Like I'm really realizing it from a like firsthand, how the value of just like networking with your industry peers, at the very beginning of which just not feeling alone, right? So there's that. But then beyond that, just so much you can learn, and you just feel reassured, and it's become so valuable for me. And then one of the biggest surprises about a year and a half in is just how much I've leaned on this community of thought leadership among other agency owners. Obviously always marketing professionals, but it's running an agency is hard, and I'm trying to figure a lot of things out in terms of specialization and how to deliver services and how to package them and things like that, and how to constantly improve. So all of these things is just marketing is just such a special industry. I don't know if other industries are or aren't like this, but it just seems to be such a giving, collaborative industry. And I'm just really thankful to have lucked into this profession for that reason alone.
No, absolutely. And I think it takes, I've seen it on Twitter, and I've seen it in other communities too, where you get to a point when you realize there's enough work for all of us if we're doing our best. And if we're bringing our best work to the table. And as soon as you have that mindset, then you don't see each other as competitors. Like I can be happy for someone else being successful because that wasn't meant to be mine. This is what I want. This is what I'm going for. So what turns into, and what I've really leaned into is, I don't see others as competitors. I see who I was yesterday. I need to be better than that. I need to be making better impact than that.
Right. You're competing against yourself mostly. I love it. I love it. Especially too, thankfully, I think unless you've started a business before, if your marketing agency, for example, to bring it back to that, is the first business you've ever started, especially in this industry, you have a propensity to say yes to everything in the beginning.
Yes.
I am thankful that phase only lasted about 6 to 9 months for me. And so now I've quickly identified the things that I want to be doing and I don't want to be doing. And now when I see other people doing things, I'm just like, yes, I am so glad that they're doing that and not me, because I do not want to be doing that, right? And in order for me to have a successful business, a profitable business where everybody can work hard, do good work, be paid well, right? And not, be totally burnt out, we have to really focus in on the things that we do really well and do that over and over again. And 100%. Not be distracted by things that you could do to make an extra buck, but like, no, it's okay. And so that becomes really reassuring as well. And so now I'm actually like in the process of forging partnerships with would-be competitors to do things that, that can add more value to my client without us having to do it. And, everybody wins that way too. And that's really good. And I think important. I think every agency will eventually get there, because you can't scale being all things to all people. It is just, unless you, one day, maybe if you become a giant company and that you can figure out ways to departmentalize that. But geez, it just feels so exhausting. So
absolutely. 100%.
So Christina, if somebody is interested in you, in HubSpot, in marketing, Twitter, in whatever, where should they go find you and look you up?
Absolutely. So I'm that Christina G on Twitter. I also have blogs on Medium, and you can just search Christina Garnett on LinkedIn, and feel free to drop me a DM if you want to talk.
Absolutely. Definitely follow her on Twitter, that at that Christina G. I've been following her for a while now. Really great. The not just the stuff that you share, but to your point, the other voices that you amplify, which is really great. If you're into marketing, you're into HubSpot, you're into community, Christina Garnett is absolutely a person to follow. So, Christina, thank you again for coming on. We could have talked for so much longer, but we all have things to do. I really appreciate your time. Let's hope that the Bonnies beat LSU and that the Hokies beat Florida today,
Yep.
and the weekend just gets even better. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
You too.